But in her real life, she's actually a linguistics guru and is perfect for this type of tool and application. So I'm very pleased that we're both going to be presenting. I'm going to focus more on the business side and what we're trying to do to integrate VisibleThread into our corporate processes and how we're actually using it as a change agent within the company. And Jessica, with her linguistics background, is actually going to dive down into the use case that we chose to show you more of how we were able to take advantage of the technical application to win what was for us a very major contract. So let me tell you first a little bit about ourselves, and this is very important. We are a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business under 15 million. Our customers primarily are the intelligence community, DHS, FAA, Department of Veterans Affairs. Even though we're small, we are a mature small business. We have 11 different locations where we're working. Over 90% of our work has always been as a prime, going back to 2002 when our company was started. And our core competencies are information technology, data analytics, another reason why we absolutely love VisibleThread, program management, financial management, and acquisition management. As a company, we've been on the Inc. 5000 for 5 years in a row, which shows a steady growth. And we've also been the winner of several Small Business Achievement Awards. So why are we using VisibleThread? So it's classic small business story, which I understand large businesses also have this issue. We have a small, gifted, but beleaguered business development team of 2. This year, we have 3. We have one proposal manager that we call in on a consultant basis, and we borrow wherever we can from the company. We borrow SMEs, we borrow contracts people. We've tried to borrow pricers, but it still comes back to us. We wear multiple hats. We do the capture, we do the proposal management, we do the writing, we do the editing, we do the training. So what we decided to do as a small business was to serve within our company as part of that organizational change agent, because one day we're not going to be small and we've got to compete and compete hard straight up. And the truth is, in this market, small business set-asides, we're still competing against larges. Every small business we go up against has a very large corporation, oftentimes writing their proposals. So we have to figure out a way to be smarter and how essentially to fight above our weight class. So as the change agent within our company, what we've tried to do is engage operations into our BD process, and we try to train them. So we have better reviewers, we have better writers, and they have day jobs. So we have to really work hard at outlining a process for them that's simple, easy for them to follow. And so another important part is that as a small business, we not only have to convince other companies to bid with us as a subcontract partner, but often we have the experience of some large companies who decide that they want to bid with us, who begin to pick apart our proposal process. Somehow it's like a hazing. We have to first convince them that we're good enough and we can actually win the work, then they come into our process and then they say, oh, now you have to prove to us that you know what you're doing and you're competent. So for all of those reasons, the moment we saw in VisibleThread, we said, this tool is going to help us on so many levels. We do have existing processes that we follow. We always, on the proposal management side, we always start with developing a compliance matrix by hand. We prepare the annotated outlines that bring in section M, section L, section C, give it to our writers by hand. We go through, we prepare our kickoff packages to convince our partners that we know what we're doing and we're organized from day one. And we're usually up till midnight, 2 in the morning, the night before, making sure we have all the ducks in the row so that we can ask them to stay off our backs while we're trying to get the proposal done. And then we have our color reviews before we even write. before we even get to those color reviews, we always start with the whiteboard process. We really want to be about the quality of the solution. We want to understand the requirement. We want to understand that solicitation, just like Fergal was talking about, not misunderstand, but understand. So we don't even begin writing until we have everyone on the same page and we've thought through our whiteboard solution. So you can already see VisibleThread helped us with several issues. No tool is a silver bullet. We still have to think. We still have to do the hard work. But basically what it did for us is it reinforced the existing system processes that we had and added a depth of rigor. It supplemented our limited and beleaguered BD staff resources. By not having to do the manual process, we were then able to spend more time diving deep into the analysis of the requirement and being able to strategize so that we can develop better solutions. And because we are borrowing from everyone in the company for writing, it gave us a way to continuously improve the process of the writing and to be able to give feedback to the writers to show them what we were talking about. When we said write to a 10th grade education, they started going, oh, we get it, shorter sentences. You know, we had something that we could show them. But even more important is that we're using it as a training technique and as a way of integrating these processes throughout the company. So once we've had the great fortune of winning, we then use VisibleThread to run a responsibilities matrix. We proactively call a meeting with all the parts of the company that are going to implement, and we're able to hand them a responsibilities matrix, explain why we bid the way we did, and oh yeah, here are the things we've committed the company to doing, and we put it for you in one nice easy sheet. So there's just so many ways that VisibleThread for us was a no-brainer. And the bottom line is that it has helped us as a small business compete at higher weight levels than we normally would be able to. We're fighting above our weight class. Okay, so what we wanted to do is, by the way, we are a brand new VisibleThread user. We've only had this tool since January 2007. So 1 year. 2017. So 1 year, we have not yet been able to integrate it into every single one of our proposals, but we're getting there. In 2017, we used it on 3 proposals, and we won all 3. So for us, VisibleThread is a very good tool. We love to tell our partner small business companies, go get this tool, and we love to tell our competitors, don't listen to this, Fergal, stay away from VisibleThread. Okay, so there's one of the opportunities that we bid on in 2017 that was just so significant to us, and we honestly don't think we would have made it across the finish line without VisibleThread, and we would not have won, in our opinion, without having VisibleThread. So I'm going to give you the background. Among the various services that we offer as a company, we have one offering that is so niche and so highly specialized that very few agencies are able to afford it or implement it. It's an enterprise-wide type of decision, which already makes it difficult. Usually the agencies that have the money for this are on the intelligence community. So what happens is, because it's such a big commitment on their part, these contracts tend to be 10 to 20 years when they issue them. So the opportunities are very rare and very few and far between. So we had something in mind, and we began planting seeds as far back as 2005, 2007, with 3 target agencies. And at that time, there was absolutely no desire, political will on their part to implement the specialized services that we had, but we knew they needed them. So what we did is we stayed loosely engaged. Over those 10 years, we knew which annual conference events those agencies would be at. We arranged to have booths there. And for 10 years, we showed up so that we could bump into these individuals in a natural format and just be able to establish relationships and wherever we can to have discussion about these particular niche services. We just continue to monitor for any murmurings, and finally, we started to hear that one of the agencies was seriously considering the types of services that we offered. We waited 10 years for the opportunity to materialize. So let me give you the unfolding of this must-win bid process. Now, mind you, if we didn't bid on this, and if we didn't win it, we're not going to see this opportunity again for 10 to 20 years. Okay, so it is a must-win in that sense. So in 2015, we, at one of those conference events, we ran into one of our target customers, and we had a very good impromptu substantive discussion. They peppered us with questions. They took us aside and for 2 hours asked us what the best practices were in the industry, what we were seeing, what various alternatives they might be to different ones of their pain points, which they were very careful not to fully tell us what their pain points were, right? A year later, in 2016, they issued an RFI. And it was a white paper type of RFI, so we responded. Took some work on our part, but we responded. It was like a mini proposal. And after that, we were peppered with various market research inquiries, which we always made sure we responded to them. Another year, in May 2017, a draft solicitation was released. By the end of the month, we were invited to participate in a multi-step advisory process. We were the only small business. The other companies invited were all large, substantially large. So as part of the process, they set up a series of one-on-one exchange meetings with all the companies that were identified as intending to prime. They actually made us do another mini proposal so that they could give a viability assessment, of which they eliminated some of the companies and some of us were able to go through. They also said, oh yeah, surprise, we want to show up on site visits, we want to take everyone apart. So we went through that, and in July 2017, they revised the draft solicitation. So let me stop there. Here comes VisibleThread, right? So we have the first draft solicitation that doesn't have any instructions, but it has a PWS and kind of where they're going. Now we've got a revised solicitation, so we immediately said, well, let's bring in the big tool, right? So we ran it to comparison to see what had changed. Up to this point in our company's history, we would have to go line by line manually and use our yellow highlights to figure out what's changed. So this helped us a lot. There was actually several draft solicitations that were issued in July in short order, one after another. So we had like 3 draft solicitations in July. So we just kept using the tool, which saved us immensely. And then in August, the final solicitation dropped. Again, we used it to run, to set up our compliance matrix, to double check, and they gave us 2 weeks to respond. And it was a massive proposal. We submitted it at the end of August, and then in October, we heard from them, and they said we're opening up competitive range discussions. We had multiple rounds of competitive range, some in writing, some in person. And then in January, actually, in January 2018, they issued the final revised proposal submission. Again, we brought out VisibleThread just to make sure that we were on top and fully understanding what was going on. That's a long process, and we're a small company. So when we're looking at this must-win consideration, at this point, we've already invested 2.5 years. This isn't 2.5, 10 years we were waiting, planting seeds. 2.5 years we were in active capture proposal management mode. The multi-advisory step was extremely involved and demanding. We brought in our technical SMEs, the owner of the company was involved, we had the vice president of operations. We probably had a team of about 10 people off and on working on this multi-advisory step. 9 months of capture and proposal resources. And we're constantly throughout this process saying we're small. We've got to compete smarter in order to even have a chance. So you can already tell at this point, oh, and by the way, once this came out and the draft was released in May 2017, weren't able to bid on anything else. This was it for the rest of the year. So at this point, it's no longer a must win. It's now, we have to win. You know, we've really put the company on the line here. Fortunately, we'd won 3 other large proposals earlier in the year, so that, you know, took some pressure off. So a little bit about the requirement itself. This isn't just a writing exercise. This is a 10-year contract, which for a small company is huge. And the initial estimate was this was a $50 to $70 million deal, right? So for us, this is really big. For the other big companies, it was really big too. Okay, so there was many integrated moving parts. We had to, part of our solution that we designed involved construction of multiple skips. We had physical information personnel security issues we had to address. We were dealing with classified IT networks that had to have 99.9% uptime and 0 data loss. They wanted state-of-the-art audio-visual. We had part of our bid included furniture for 300 plus people. We had to have an integrated master schedule for the multiple business processes that we would be managing on behalf of this customer. And we had to show subject matter expertise of specialized industry knowledge. There was labor, and there was janitorial, security guards, various commercial services. So this is not a normal small business bid. This was a lot for us. Pricing was significant. We had a price volume narrative. In addition to that, they asked us for 2 separate sets of pricing. They wanted it priced under hypothetical A, and oh yeah, if we decide to do B, give us a separate set of pricing for hypothetical B, and give us your milestone payments. For 10 years, we had 15 different tabs in each of the spreadsheets, 17 columns in each spreadsheet, so that basically we were submitting 3 spreadsheets, 40 different tabs, 2,644 lines. Now, at the time, VisibleThread isn't dealing with Excel, right? So any changes to this was going to have to be done manually. So just keep that in mind later when Fergal talks about Excel capabilities. Okay, just to give you an idea of the magnitude, the original proposal had 6 volumes, 357 pages. Anything in green means that those were that there wasn't a limitation on those particular pages. We just had to get the requirements. Now, notice 357, okay, that's a fair amount. But then when we got to the final RFP, the final revised RFP, they added 59 pages and gave us 5 business days, 1 holiday, and 4 weekends. 4 weekend days, so we had 10 days and 50 more pages plus whatever revisions we had to correct, right? So this is a really big effort. Think about doing this manually. We'd be cooked. So at that point, when we got the final, the request for the final RFP, they threw some zingers in with no time. And we thought, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to manage this in a way where we're compliant? And in waltzed our linguist expert who said, hey, VisibleThread can handle this. So she's going to give the rest of the presentation on how we overcame the challenge in order to be compliant.
I'm Jessica Mancia. So yes, as she's laid out quite well, we were going through a huge process, a lot of time, a lot of energy, and then whenever it finally comes out, okay, we're ready for best and final offer, then they come into, you know, actually whenever we got the letter saying, these are the specific instructions that we want you to follow, that was dated January 2nd. So not even before the holidays, but January 2nd, with the proposal due date of January 8th at noon to be delivered in person. So you imagine that whenever you're doing a bid response, that is a lot of production time costs too. We also, had to look at deficiencies, weaknesses, incorporate those, address those in the revisions. We have been working on that. But You know, they add in this text down at the bottom. Any changes incorporated into the FRP must be fully documented, and a notification of changes reference matrix at the beginning of each volume. They want us to identify and document each and every revision that we did to all of the volumes before, and then send that in by the 8th before noon. Thanks, enjoy your holidays. That's exactly what I wanted to do with my New Year's. When we saw this, our entire company deflated because we're looking at it going, this has been an enormous task thus far. How are we going to get this all done? How are we going to go through line by line of all of these volumes and actually show them, yes, we can do this one. We can take care of all of this. Then it occurs to me, we're set up for success. Actually, let's say at the proposal solution, if you wanted to look at any of these. So we were doing the text change bars. Strategic concerns, we were looking at how are we going to address the text change bars. We went back to a questions and answered with the government saying, okay, well, can we highlight, just highlight, a gray text, show you where the changes are. And then you can use that one, but then with the matrix, how are you going to put this into the document? Sorry, I'm going to skip through this one because I want to look at the closer look of VisibleThread, how we actually used the compare document feature to solve our problem, really solve our problem. We were already set up for success because, as Cheryl had outlined before, when we're going through our process, we used it for the compliance matrices. We used it for comparing. You have the draft RFP, the final RFP. Every time we got a new document, ran it through the tool to update the compliance matrix, identify all of the changes, so we have all of them there. So that just means once we get our final revision, we can do the document compare on the original submission that we provided, that all I have to do is load into this and compare it with the other RFPs that we've had, and then the final submission. So I ran that. Your eyes are not bad. There is blurred text in here because we had to kind of sanitize the information for this particular bid. But I select the documents here and then run it, and as we've seen before, actually on VMware's doing the compare, it populates fantastically. It's right there. We've got all of our information. All I have to do is go through and delete out all of the identical entries, because VisibleThread has already shown us if it's identical, if it's modified, if it's added, deleted. So the work is halfway done for me, more than halfway done for me. I deleted all of the identical entries, and then with a little formatting coming through afterwards, I came through and added volume section, volume subsection, page, and paragraph, which were a few of the key points that that our customer had presented in that curveball that they threw. Text change bars, change matrices. We want to see which section, subsection, page, paragraph. We want to see what was the change, and then was it added, modified, deleted. We're looking at that thinking this is amazing. So we've got half of the solution right here without even having to sit down and do line by line comparisons as we would have had to do before. So a matter of formatting, go through that, and then we have a beautiful matrix in each of the volumes that we had to revise. There were a number, as she mentioned, there were about 6 or 7 total volumes for this proposal. You only had to resubmit the ones that you had changes on. So you only have to resubmit because it was still a huge lift, but we were down to contracts, technical, management, and price, unfortunately, and resubmitting price. But still, looking at the final matrix, this is one page of 13, 14, maybe 15 pages per matrix, per volume. I mean, we're talking about an enormously heavy lift of change identifications. So we have this beautiful thing to report whenever we finally submitted the proposals. It looked fantastic. We were so jazzed whenever we came back in here. we got the sigh of relief, after the 8th, the day or 2 days where you just sleep the entire time afterwards because you have no more energy left. Your fumes are on fumes. And so once I, reawakened after like kind of the coma that put me into, I took a step back to realize, well, what would we have done if we didn't have VisibleThread? Like really, what was the benefit for this? Because I know whenever I was creating the matrices, I'm thinking, oh, thank God I don't have to do this by hand. And then it took me a while to say, all right, there is a huge impact in this case, in all of the cases, from this and moving forward, just knowing the kind of leverage, the kind of will or manpower that we have with our little BD team, there's so much more we can accomplish. So what the level of effort for this actually was like I said, the 4 volumes covered. 4 major volumes, the ones that they're actually looking at, evaluating. They're looking for deficiencies. They're looking for some way that we've tripped up and we did not provide, we did not answer the mail of what they were requesting. And as Cheryl had mentioned, this is a huge deal for us because we're playing against big companies, large companies, and that's very difficult. When you come into a room like that, you have to show we may be small, but we're here and we're just as good and we can provide you not just the same quality, but better quality. Obviously in the contracting world, in our market, it's very difficult to provide the right ammo to really tell the government that best value, the best value contract you say is best value, but it's really LPTA. No, it really should be best value because you're getting so much more if you just increase a little bit. So we're looking at those big revisions, such a little time. We're looking at this thinking, you're trying to trip us up. And we know that you're trying to give us an impossible feat and say, can you really do it? Because we're trusting you with a huge undertaking. Can you really do what you say so well in the proposal? What it came down to, and I only provided the breakdown on my part creating the matrices. There was a lot also going in there. There was all of the revision time from before when we were in discussions, revising the proposal. There was also additional formatting and tweaking in white glove after the matrices were provided into the volumes prior to submission. But I wanted to take just kind of a closer look at like what's the cost breakdown of my implementation of these into our solution. It took me a full 10 hours to complete the matrices. And that's not, like I said, not including whenever I sent it back over and said, okay, put these in, let's see where it goes. Didn't include the quality assurance or production time to get the physical volumes ready to be submitted to our customers' hands. But 10 hours to create those 4 matrices. If I had tried to do that in Word, like this makes my head hurt. And I only looked at 1 volume because I thought, well, what would have actually taken if I didn't have VisibleThread, and I actually did have to do this, create the matrix or the matrices in the word compare function. Like sure, it'll actually show me what are the additions, what are the deletions, but I would have been tasked, or we would have been tasked, with going line by line and identifying, well, do they really care if I reformat and if this is italicized and it's not italicized? No, I don't have to worry about that. Addition of the text, okay. That's my line item, copy and paste into my Excel spreadsheet and start going through all of the volumes to identify all of those changes. And then I started thinking, okay, so there's 2 ways you could approach this. You could do the C response, like I just want to be an average student and send in exactly what is just bare line compliant. You asked for what is the change, so what was added or deleted, identify what it was, if it was a modification, addition, whatever, and you wanted those sections. So I could have created a table in Word and included all of that. Bare minimum, cuts mustard, that's fine. Or the A response. because we need to show we are actually here, we mean business, we can do this better than anybody else can. So then we have the actual content comparison from one to the other, not just saying it's modified, but you can see this was the original submission, and you can see the paragraph that it goes to. This is the submission you're getting now, and it shows you exactly what was the change. You don't have to look at our previous submission. You don't have to look at the matrix and then flip into the volume and see what are we talking about, okay? On page 2, paragraph 3, you said you deleted IT insurers. What do you mean? Where's IT insurers? It's cumbersome. Nobody would want to do it. They say, okay, yeah, sure, that's fine. This gives you a precise recap of one volume to the next. Like C is just not going to get us anywhere. So, cost savings. What if I had done C? If we were, thankfully, not in a world with VisibleThread. If we had to do this on our own, just word compare, it still would have taken me the 10 hours to do the Excel formatting, to identify the section, subsection, page number, and paragraph of all of the changes. But I also would have had to do a copy and paste of every addition, deletion, and modification. So I tried to do that on that word compare starting document. I didn't get very far because it's tedious and I didn't like it. But it took me about 5 seconds, roughly 5 seconds for each change. So if you're looking at that, the line items from the actual matrices that we were dealing with, not including the Excel spreadsheets for the price volume, but the change matrices that we actually we worked with was 1,995 line items. I would have had to do the copy and paste 1,095 times. I didn't want to do that. That would have taken me 5,475 seconds. Ugh. That goes down to about 1.5 hours. You look at it and say, okay, well, 11.5 hours to do those matrices. That's fine, like that's doable. And it is, but it is also average. And average isn't going to win you anything. The A response, what I would have had to do for that is, again, the copy and paste of every paragraph, the highlighting of each addition, deletion, and modification. So that one, probably more like about a minute, every change, modification, deletion, which would have translated to 18.25 hours. So that matrix would have taken me 28.25 hours, almost a full part-time week, when we did not have a full week to do the whole revision. And keeping in mind that when we got the instructions, we still had to complete the revisions to get to the final proposal submissions that could then be loaded into VisibleThread so that I could run the matrices and spit those back out so that our production team could do the final submissions, could do the QA, could do the production, and all of that prior to submitting before noon on Monday. Happy holidays. So we saved over 18 hours. 18 hours in just creating these documents. I looked back at the numbers for that and I was floored. Literally, my jaw was hanging open. My husband had to ask, what's the matter? But I was floored because I told him in 2016, whenever I came back from this conference, this is an amazing tool. I'm so excited about this. I hope we can get it. I want to go and I want to present next year. Funny. And it worked out very well. But coming back from it, I looked at the real impact. Really what this happened for us with VisibleThread is including the matrices, not having to spend the extra 18 hours. You know, we still had, once I sent that back over, we've got the matrices, they had to do the QA check, line by line, using the matrix and the change volumes, the actual proposals, where it has the gray highlighting, do a line by line comparison to make sure, have we got everything covered, did we address it? And that took 2 people, the 4 volumes, an hour each, so that's 8 hours. Also noticing with this, 100% accuracy. because VisibleThread goes through and checks, you don't have the human error element involved. That if I were copy and pasting from a Word document, Word Compare, coming through saying, okay, well, I think I got this one, oh, whoops, you know what, I jumped over that paragraph. There would have been room for error if I had done this manually. But we know with VisibleThread, it actually provided us 100% confidence because we've got 100% accuracy. Then we go from QA, we go to white glove, and between white glove and production, that was 72 hours after fixing all of the matrices. We have 3 people working on that, and not saying 72 hours after all of mine, but 3 people working 12 hours a day. This is over Saturday, this is a Sunday night, trying to run through this. The final notification of our team saying, okay, final page printed, it's all packed up, we're ready to go, and we can hit the road before traffic starts really, except that it's Northern Virginia, so it never ends, was completed at 11 p.m. on Sunday night. If we had not had VisibleThread, there's not 18 hours between 11 p.m. and when they had to have the proposals. We would not have been compliant. It would not have been possible. Even if we put things together, we could not have made the submission time. We would have been in production when they were saying, time's up. It would have been impossible to actually have a compliant on-time submission if we had not had VisibleThread to run the matrices for us, to start out with that. We wouldn't have won the contract. For us, for the amount of time that we had put in trying to massage and get in there and plant the seeds, it would have been all for naught, except we had, I want to say the silver bullet, but it wasn't. We had a fantastic team, and we had this resource. So it was an amazing user story for us that when we were, VisibleThread reached out and said we were planning the conference, we'd love for you guys to come if you guys have any stories. We went, yes, we do. And we're hoping that at least can give you an idea of some of the out of the box applications. Like this is the compare docs, we used it the way that it was supposed to be used, but in an instance where we're not just doing the revision one draft to the next draft, but where it actually saved our bacon. So I am very happy that they gave us the opportunity to present this and share this story, because I think it's, we kind of got a little bit of a David and Goliath thing going on here. So that's our user success story, and it is such a success.